Here.
Councilman Lucy.
Here.
Councilman Hughes.
Here.
Councilman Santino.
Here.
Councilman King Sweeney. Receiver of taxes Donald X. Clay.
Here.
Please call the first public hearing. Proposed local law regarding regulations and restrictions to limit parking in Franklin Square, Merrick, Oceanside, Warrenton, West Hempstead, and Whitney.
I don't have any speaking slips. Does anybody wish to be heard? If not, make a motion.
Supervisor Murray. Aye. Councilman Andrusino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Lucy. Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman Santino.
Aye.
Councilman King Sweeney.
Please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding parking stand prohibitions in Franklin Square, Levittown, Merritt, Roosevelt, Seaport, Uniondale, Warrenton, and Woodmere.
Does anybody wish to be heard on this matter? May I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and
Supervisor Murray. Aye. Councilman Andrusino.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Boothby. Councilman Hughes. Councilman Santino.
Aye.
Councilman King Sweeney.
Please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding luxury stops in Hewlett and North Valley Street.
Does anybody wish to be heard on this matter? May I have a motion?
Yes, I move that the hearing be closed and the local law be adopted. Second motion.
Supervisor Murray. Aye. Councilman Andrusino.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Boothby. Councilman Hughes. Councilman Santino.
Aye.
Councilman King Sweeney.
Please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding traffic regulations in the vicinity of schools in Uniondale.
Does anybody wish to be heard on this matter? May I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and the local law be adopted.
Supervisor Murray. Aye. Councilman Andrusino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Boothby. Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman Santino.
Aye.
Councilman King Sweeney.
Please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding U-turn prohibition in Uniondale.
We have Alejandro Rivera. Please come forward, sir. You could have a seat if you'd like. And if you could share your name and address for the record, please.
Alejandro Rivera, principal, North Park Elementary School in Uniondale, 440 Parkway.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Just on behalf of our superintendent of schools, Dr. Lloyd, of Board of Education, and families, our staff, just want to say thank you for putting this on the agenda, for voting on it. We look forward to having this passed, and it is a huge asset to our community as it provides additional savings. So from between 43 to 45, and we thank you very, very much on behalf of the community. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rivera. Does anybody else wish to be heard? That was the only speaker. No, may I have a motion? Oh, do you want to speak? Yes. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Supervisor, Councilman Boothby. My sister-in-law has been fighting for this for the children. We grew up, I went to Northern Parkway myself, and this is great. We have videos. We have been fighting and fighting for the safety of our children. So we thank you so much for passing this.
Okay. We go later.
Very welcome, but I must thank the community, especially Dr. Lloyd and the principal and so forth over there, because they sent this in to us and we reacted to it right away. So we didn't know. That came from our legacy.
Thank you.
It's good.
Does anybody else wish to be heard? If not, may I have a motion? Did we do a motion? Could I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and that the local law be enacted.
Supervisor Murray. Aye. Councilman Andrusino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Boothby.
Aye.
Councilman Hughes. Councilman Santino.
Aye.
Councilman King Sweeney.
All right, passed unanimously. Please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding one-way streets designated in Uniondale.
All right, does anybody wish to be heard on that matter? May I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and that the local law be enacted.
Supervisor Murray.
Aye.
Councilman Andrusino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Boothby.
Aye.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman Santino.
Aye.
Councilman King Sweeney. regarding building permits and regulations of construction.
Does anybody wish to be heard on this matter? May I have a motion?
Yes, Supervisor, I move that the public hearing be closed and the proposed local law be adopted.
Second.
Supervisor Murray.
Aye.
Councilman Anderson.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Boothby. Aye. Councilman Hughes. Councilman Santino.
Aye.
Councilman King Sweeney.
Please call the next public hearing.
Proposed revised public parking field maps in West Town.
Does anybody wish to be heard on this matter? May I have a motion?
I move the public hearing be closed and proposed to adopt.
Supervisor Murray.
Aye.
Councilman Anderson.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Boothby. Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman Santino. Councilman King Sweeney.
Please call the next public hearing.
Proposed handicap parking on public streets in Elmont, Franklin Square, Merritt, North Merritt, Oceanside, and West Hempstead.
Does anybody wish to be heard on this matter? May I have a motion?
Second.
Supervisor Murray.
Aye.
Councilman Anderson.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Boothby. Councilman Hughes. Councilman Santino.
Aye.
Councilman King Sweeney.
Please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding sale of cats and dogs within the town of Hempstead.
Mr. Brown? Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Supervisor, members of the board. Christian Brown, 333 Earl Oldham Boulevard, Suite 601, Uniondale, appearing for 3 pet stores in the town of Hempstead that would be affected by the proposed legislation. Good morning. Before I begin, I would like to just note that on behalf of my clients, we're requesting an adjournment of this matter. I'm aware that the case has been adjourned a number of times before. However, I was just retained late last week, and this version of the bill was not posted until late Friday afternoon. I would also note that it's my understanding that this present version is substantially different from versions that the town board was considering in the past. And obviously, given the time, we really haven't had an opportunity to thoroughly review the latest version of the legislation. Not asking for a long time. I understand there are many people here interested in this matter, but in fairness to my clients who would be substantially affected by these new regulations, I would ask that the town board grant a 30-day adjournment if that's possible.
Mr. Brown, I'm concerned about the request for an adjournment. As you said, there are a number of folks here who came fully expecting to have the hearing. I'm also concerned because this was originally on for consideration by the board in July, and it was adjourned for a couple of months just so that there could be further conversation amongst all the stakeholders, the pet shop owners, the animal rights advocates, anybody who had an interest in this legislation. I understand that you were retained very, very recently, but you know, the pet shop owners, they were here, they have been working and talking with the town attorney staff. Is that correct, Mr. Brown?
Correct.
Represented? So I'm very concerned because people have an expectation that this legislation would be considered. There would be an open hearing for everybody to give their opinions. I'm not sure, and I certainly can't telegraph what my colleagues, how they would ultimately vote, but I'm not sure that there would be a resolution on this potentially today anyway. Most decisions are reserved, as I say. I'm not telegraphing, I'm not predicting, but just based on past town board practice, the vast majority of applications are put on reserve for reserve decision, and many times those records are kept open based on a reserve decision. If people couldn't come, they could submit later on. Again, I'm not telegraphing any kind of voting patterns or anything that might happen on this particular application. Obviously, everybody is on their own line, but I'm just concerned.
Supervisor, in addition, existing pet stores would have 1 year within which to comply. And so during that period of time also, we can continue a dialogue with both sides
And that's, of course, after,
after any decision, right?
yeah, if the decision was to enact, that it would only be after the actual enactment.
Correct.
Of legislation.
30 days, the law would take effect 30 days after we passed it. But then the existing pet stores would have 1 year within which to comply. And within that time, I'm sure we're going to hear from both sides. If we go forward, I'm sure we're going to hear from both sides today. We will continue with dialogue during that period.
I understand that, Madam Supervisor. With that, I mean, I would just, obviously, whichever order the board chooses to go in, just be able to give our comments as much as we've been able to cobble together on the bill and have a representative of one of the stores sit with me when I do that.
Certainly, from day one, we have wanted the input, the study input and the heartfelt input from all the stakeholders. You know, and as some famous judge once said, compromise, sort of no one's happy, but it's a step. So I don't know how my fellow board members feel about an adjournment, but I'm sort of loath to adjourn it now that people have come down to express their opinions.
And I think, Madam Supervisor, certainly anything that you are unprepared to deal with today, you can certainly submit to the board, because again, speaking for myself only, my inclination would be to reserve decision today and not make a decision at the end of this hearing. So you would have ample opportunity to revise and extend to borrow the phrase.
Thank you.
As would anybody of any opinion on this issue. With an open record, everybody, anybody, all can contribute as long as the record is open. So.
Understood. So I'll defer to however you'd like to proceed in terms of taking comments.
If you wanted to.
Okay, fine then. Don't mind.
If you wanted to share your thoughts.
Yes, thank you. For the record.
Good morning.
Good morning. Michael Glass, 10514 S&P Circle, Harvey, Arkansas, company in American Beverage Incorporated, employed by Colorado Resigning.
And he's assisting the pet stores in dealing with these types of legislation.
And could you say your name again? I'm sorry.
Michael Glass.
Michael Glass. Thank you, Mr. Glass.
All right, well, I'll try to keep this brief, but make our points as salient as possible. First of all, I would just draw the board's attention to the first substantive provision of the bill, which is 153-3A1. This regulation would deal with the size of, essentially the size of the, well, how many dogs or pets you can have in a store. Would limit it to 100 square, one pet for each 100 square feet. Now, obviously many of these stores have far more animals than would be permitted under this section. These are generally small mom and pop operations. You're all familiar with them. They're generally in strip malls or in the kind of standard retail space you find in the town of Hempstead, 1,000 square feet, 1,200 square feet stores. Many of these stores have dozens of animals for sale. Under this provision, they would be limited to only a handful, which would effectively destroy their ability to operate their businesses. They simply cannot exist by selling, only offering, say, 10 dogs or 12 dogs for sale. Furthermore, I would note that the way that this is presently drafted, it would exempt existing stores, which obviously my clients all have existing stores. So in that respect, they would not be harmed by this, but you would be placing a tremendous burden on anybody else who wished to operate a store within the town's jurisdiction. In fact, if Mr. Glass will agree with what I'm about to say, you probably wouldn't have any more pet stores opening. No one's going to open a pet store. And some people apparently would find that to be a good thing. But for those, For those people who wish to buy puppies or kittens in the unincorporated areas of the town of Hempstead, they would find their choices severely restricted to the handful of stores that are already operating. And while again, this may be good for my client's business, I don't think the board intends to regulate competition and to establish a quasi-monopoly for the existing stores. So this is a very problematic provision. As I said, all of the stores my clients operate have many multiples of animals over what would be allowed here, and I don't think it's realistic for any store to operate with only 10 or 12 animals. Mr. Glass, do you have anything you want to add briefly?
Yeah, if I may, by the response to the ordinance in itself shows that the goal of the supporters of this is written. It's not for the health and welfare of the animals, it's in the existence of pet stores. This particular section shows nothing for the care, or it does not correlate to the care of the health and welfare of animals. As well, if in theory it did appear, if in theory it did apply to the health and care of pets, it would therefore also apply to veterinarian facilities, boarding kennels, daycares, and so on, not just pet stores. But again, in theory, we feel it's just a emergency, and its goal is to minimize the pet stores.
Thank you. Moving on to the other provisions in this first section with respect to the need for a public assembly license. This may or may not be objectionable. We haven't had a chance to really study its ramifications. Right now, these stores, as I understand it, are just treated like retail stores. There's no need for a public assembly license at present. They are, of course, required to comply with the Nassau County Fire Code and the New York State Fire Prevention and Building Code. This bill simply restates that they already have to the rules with which they already have to comply. We have no objection to continuing to comply with those rules. Again, we would reserve our right to submit further testimony or comments with respect to the appropriateness of a public assembly license. On the specific issue of a fire sprinkler system, this is problematic for a number of reasons. Obviously, one of them is cost. As you know, these are expensive systems to install. There's practicality in that these are tenants. All of my clients are tenants, and most of these stores would be tenants. This would be a problem in leasing space to have a landlord improve. It could be a clothing or a candy store with a fire sprinkler system, and of course that ties into the cost. It's also my understanding, and Mr. Glass will comment on this briefly now, that in national studies, there has been concern about installing these types of systems in pet stores because of the smoke conditions that they can generate. So while you're maybe saving the animals from fire, you're killing them by smoke inhalation. So could you address that briefly?
Yes, the National Fire Protection Association, and I do have that documentation to support I'm sharing with you today. There was a request, these are the go-to people throughout the nation for any concerns for fire safety. And they were presented with this issue, the need for automatic sprinkler systems in all animal facilities, all housed animal facilities. And they embraced it. And there was a lot of support for that. However, when it came down to committee meetings, it was realized that it wasn't that simple. You can't just put in fire sprinklers, automatic sprinkler systems. It was decided at the meetings, however, in the case of dangerous animals that are not approachable, that you can't just go in and remove, for example, bears, lions, tigers, zoo, research facilities, and so on, that would be applicable. However, there needed to be more study on this. As well, the cost-benefit analysis had to be considered. It's not as simple as putting in a sprinkler system because of the water damage, the structural damage, and the spoke damage. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, moving along, the issue with the breeders is the next topic covered by the legislation. The legislation would require that the pet stores file with the town clerk lists of their breeders accompanied by affidavits making certain representations about the breeders. First of all, this is a business problem for the stores because for lack of a better word, the pets are obviously their products. The places that they're getting the pets from are considered a business or trade secret. They're not interested in having their competitors know which breeders they choose to get their dogs from. Moreover, and Mr. Glass will explain this better than I can, but the breeders are already regulated by the federal government, by the Department of Agriculture. There are different kinds of breeders. There are direct, what they call Class A, I believe, breeders who are the actual breeders, and then there are Class B breeders who are function essentially as brokers. Each pet store is already under a legal obligation to police itself and police the Class A and Class breeders from whom they buy animals. They cannot buy from disreputable, unlicensed breeders that have been subject to prosecution or other types of sanction for having abused animals or committed other violations of the rules. If they are caught with such an animal, they're already subject to enforcement. And it is the duty of the pet store owner to check his inventory against the information on the breeder supplied to him by the Department of Agriculture to make sure that he is only buying from an appropriately licensed breeder with essentially a clean record. So that's already being regulated at the federal level, as a matter of fact, and therefore those types of regulations are really superfluous at the local level. Most importantly on this topic, under provision 7C of that first section, this bill would restrict local pet stores to purchasing only from Class A breeders. As I mentioned, and again Mr. Glass can explain a little bit better, a Class A breeder is, as I understand it, the actual person raising the animals, not the brokers. Now, in an area such as the town of Hempstead in the New York City, Long Island region, most of these breeders are simply not here. You'd have to travel quite a bit of distance to go to, I guess, a farm, basically, to buy the animals directly. These pet stores utilize the Class B breeders who are the broker type of, act as the brokers who bring the animals to the pet stores. It is impossible for them to have animals for sale if they are not permitted to deal with the Class B brokers. They cannot drive weekly or even more often to Pennsylvania or upstate New York to put animals in a truck and drive them back to Merrick. That's just impossible. So this provision in and of itself would put the stores out of business because they would not be able to have any inventory. Mr. Glass?
I'd like, for the sake of clarity, the difference between a Class A breeder and a Class B dealer does not mean that one is an A category and one is a B category, one's better, one's not as good. Class A, within certain boundaries and parameters, is required to be licensed by the USDA. Such a breeder would be selling puppies to a pet store. Class B, for lack of better words, that's the transportation company. That's the person that's licensed and regulated to bring that puppy to the store. With regards to submitting a list, there are some 1,700 pet stores across the United States. Now, I apologize, 1,700 breeders, USDA licensed breeders across the United States. I don't expect the committee to believe that I'm trying to tell you that these pet stores are purchasing from 1,700 breeders. However, realistically, they may have a regular pace to deal with anywhere from 5 to 10 to 20 to 30 or more of them. However, when you're dealing with a broker, those particular brokers, you can have half a dozen brokers that deal with hundreds. So therefore, it would very reasonably mean that the pet stores would be required to submit a list, literally, of hundreds of breeders. As well, there may be a case where there may be a breeder down the road who has a litter of puppies, a breeder that would be delivering this puppy to the Class B dealer to distribute it, and there's no way that pet store may know that's happening. So again, this has become, forgive me for continuing to use the word onerous, but onerous, burdensome, extreme. Its only purpose will serve is to make tedious paperwork in the case of the pet store. As well, there's a request for an affidavit from each pet store regarding each breeder. So again, you can only imagine, please, the mounds and mounds of paperwork that would involve. With regards to this proposal does not include and does not allow for the, this proposal does not include and does not allow for the purchase of puppies from a Class B dealer. If I may use this illustration, actually let me back up here. Geographically, throughout the United States, one pet store may be located closer to breeders than, let's say, New York City. You're not going to have a lot of breeders in New York City. So therefore, it stands to reason that the brokers are the prime source. That's their business model. They rely on the brokers to work with the breeders and ensure the quality of the care of the breeders give to their dogs and their care, all the way down to the puppies. Not allowing to purchase from Class B dealers, in effect, would be a ban on the pet stores being able to sell puppies. It's like saying, you can sell puppies, but you just can't buy them. And that's all I've got for that.
So obviously, that's a very problematic provision that we hope the board will take a very close look at, particularly this issue of the Class A and the Class B. Moving along to letter F, this deals with euthanizing animals. My clients would each and every one testify that they do not euthanize animals. All animals are sold. They don't wait until, oh, the dog hasn't sold for a year, so they put it down. That's not an issue in their business. Their business is to sell dogs and cats, and that's what they do. So we would just consider this to be a bit superfluous because it prohibits, essentially prohibits the animals from being euthanized unless they're sick. But again, perhaps there's a misconception that these stores simply put the animals down when they become difficult to sell. That's not the case.
Supervisor, I have a question. So what happens to the animals if, let's say, a dog or a cat is not sold after a year or two?
Probably that question, what do you do with the puppies and the kittens aren't sold? Probably if you listed 10 most asked questions that have no foundation, that's one of them. What do you do with the animals that don't get sold? And I can confidently tell you, again, with all due respect, we see the source of our concerns. It doesn't happen. Every animal gets a home.
I would just note also for the record, looking at the latest inventory of the town pet shelter, I believe there are just over 100 dogs and all but 2 are pit bulls in the shelter. None of these stores sell pit bulls. So that they're not going to the animal shelter.
Yes, last night I went on the town of Hempstead's website. There's somewhere around plus or minus 108 dogs. Of the 108 dogs, 2 of them may potentially be the likes of the breeds that are held in the town of Hempstead shelter. The pet stores are accused of overcrowded conditions, and because of the puppy sales from the pet stores, that is in turn what's causing the overcrowded conditions. When the pet stores were asked if they sell any of the breeds that are similar to the breeds in the Hempstead, the answers were 100% unanimous. No, it wasn't some, it wasn't once in a while, it wasn't occasionally, it wasn't now and then, it was 0. The number of dogs sold by pet stores, the breed of dogs sold by pet stores are overwhelmingly not mirrored in what is housed with the breed of dogs that are housed in the town of Hempstead shelter. So to accuse the pet stores of being the source of the town of Hempstead's overcrowded conditions is just unfounded and not true.
Thank you. Moving on to G, very briefly. G deals with sterilization, spaying, neutering of the animals. It would require pet stores to have those procedures performed before any animal is sold. The bill contains a sentence that says, consumers shall be responsible for any costs associated with utilizing such sterilization services. First of all, this poses a practical problem as to when the stores are supposed to do this. And again, I'll let Mr. Glass address this in greater detail, but there are, as I understand it, medical reasons regarding the danger or the harm that can befall animals if they are spayed or neutered too early or at the wrong time in their lives. Practically then, the pet stores would have to make a judgment, presumably in consultation with vets, about when each specific dog or cat should undergo these procedures. They would have to go out of pocket, apparently, to have that done, so that when a customer came in and said, all right, I want to buy Rover, you would say, oh good, he's already been spayed or neutered, he costs $1,000, and here's another $500 for the procedure that we had to put him through, which may not be what the customer wants. To do it any other way would essentially result in a waiting period before you could buy your dog, because you would pick your dog, obviously, and then the pet store would have to say, all right, we're going to send him off to be spayed or neutered, and come back in a few days, and you'll have to pay for it. So it's unworkable. It's an extra cost. It, of course, takes away the choice of how to manage the animal, so to speak, from its owner. And again, I just want to bring to the board's attention the issue of the medical issue regarding how these procedures are carried out and when.
Not being a veterinarian, I will limit what I can share here. But what I can comfortably share is the AVMA, the American Veterinary Medical Association, does not support mandatory spay and neuter. The New York Society for the New York Medical Veterinary Society does not support mandatory spay and neuter, and the ASPCA does not support mandatory spay and neuter. However, there's a different issue that we're addressing here. It's not spay and neuter. It's neonatal sterilization. It's taking an infant puppy, a puppy that's 8 to 10 weeks, is typically 8 to 10 to 12 weeks when it's sold at a pet store, and it's mandating that that puppy be neutered, that puppy be sterilized. There are studies, and again, I'm not qualified to speak of the studies, but there are more and more studies coming out to show that is not healthy and that is not a good thing. You'll hear overwhelming testimony from shelters of the success in spay and neuter. It's a different model. It's not consistently being done to these infant puppies. So therefore, by default, pet stores won't be able to sell the puppies. It's just not a healthy thing to do, and it's unhealthy. Thank you.
Finally, with respect to the next section, 153-4, these deal with the size of the enclosures for the animals, and 153-5 deals with the exercise requirements for the animals. The stores have no particular objection to these types of requirements, except to note for the board that they are already under enhanced or stricter regulations that were imposed on them about a year ago by Nassau County. As I understand it, the Nassau County rules require them to go well beyond what the federal regulations had previously imposed, federal or state, I don't remember exactly which one, but a higher jurisdiction. The county of Nassau has already gone beyond this. They're already required to comply with rules very similar to those outlined here. So I would just ask the board to look carefully, and we'll supply some more information about the Nassau County law, look carefully at the Nassau County law, to make sure that this isn't simply restating or going beyond what is already beyond the minimal requirements of the federal and state government. Do you have any comments on that issue? Finally, in closing, a couple of other considerations for the board to take into mind. The town of Hempstead is obviously a very large geographic jurisdiction, but as you know, you don't have jurisdiction over the entire geographic area of the township. This would mean that pet stores in the unincorporated areas could potentially be operating under far stricter regulations than, say, a pet store in an incorporated village. That's putting these stores potentially at a significant competitive disadvantage, and it's doing very little to remedy whatever problems problems there may be or perceived to be, because if you can't get your dog in, Baldwin, you can drive to Rockland Center and go to a pet store and buy it there, under the traditional model, which is regulated again by every jurisdiction from Nassau County on up. So I think that the town should look carefully at the implications for the businesses within the town's jurisdiction. Is it solving a problem, or is it simply putting town of Hempstead pet stores at a competitive disadvantage to those in incorporated villages, or of course those in Oyster Bay or North Hempstead or Queens? People will simply go to those other areas and purchase from the traditional pet store. I've already mentioned that Nassau County has enacted regulations dealing with this that are quite strict. They are new, and we believe they are perfectly adequate to deal with any issues related to the animals' health and welfare. And as I've already mentioned, this industry is quite heavily regulated by the United States Department of Agriculture. So in closing, I would just say that these are your friendly neighborhood pet stores. They've existed for years without problems. Obviously, hundreds and hundreds of town residents have purchased animals from these stores. None of the 3 stores that I represent have ever had any kind of a problem with any governmental jurisdiction regarding the maltreatment and mistreatment of these animals. They are not responsible for whatever the population of pit bulls may be in the town of Hempstead Pet Shelter. So I would hope the board would consider all these factors and just ask itself exactly what problem would be remedied by a bill such as this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you, Mr. Glass. We have a number of residents who wish to be heard on this proposed legislation. Patty O'Miller. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Patty Miller. I live on 4th Street in East Meadow. I am here today to support Kate Murray's local law, Chapter 153, as a volunteer at a local shelter and assorted rescues. Taking this very important step will set an important precedent for many other towns and cities. Kate Murray will be reporting a forward-thinking plan about the ongoing abuse and mismanagement of dog stores and the handling and care of these animals. So many of these pups end up in our local shelters and rescues. We are overwhelmed by the sheer number of the intakes here in the town of Hempstead. You name the breed, and it is here. It is heartbreaking. The best move was the mandatory spay and neuter. The town of Hempstead does it very well. It is a success. Financially, these animals become a burden on the taxpayer and families that are emotionally moved into buying these animals. The animals become victims over and over again. It is a crime. There are cages in our town shelter, in the hallways, full of purebreds, not just pit bulls. They should go and walk into the shelter and see the animals that are there. We have Yorkies, and we have Shepherds, and we have Rotties, and we have Chihuahuas. We have Japanese Jindo, we have Chihuahuas, we have plenty of Westies, you name the dogs, and they're there. So their information must be coming from something other than the actual walking through our shelter. Stopping this tide is a laudable goal. We need to support good local control to accomplish making a dent in the amount of animals brought into our locality. I have never seen a breeder come and retrieve any of the animals aforementioned. Only the rescue groups and our local town rescue coordinators and adoption specialists. Having a mandated spay and neuter on this bill is wonderful. There are hundreds and hundreds of animals that we see. I walk dogs, I care for them, and I see so many issues. This is an amazing, amazing step that will make town of Hempstead go down with so many animal advocates as making a real difference in the excess and overpopulation of our local dogs and cats. And also the cats, selling a cat just boggles my mind. We have currently 50 to 80 cats in foster. Little tiny kittens, beautiful. Some of them are purebreds as well. And I have never seen a breed come down and help with that either. So thank you very much. very much for your time.
Is it Carrie, is it Michelle or Michael? Michael, please come forward. Good morning. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Michael, and I live in Blue Point, New York. First, I want to thank everyone for putting this on the agenda this morning. And I would like to say that not only do I volunteer at my local shelter, I have been protesting faithfully for the past 5 months at one of the pet dealers in Suffolk County. One can't emphasize enough the importance of those early weeks in a puppy's life, when both environment and human interaction shape a dog's future. Puppy socialization with proper introductions to new sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and handling are critical to a happy socialized dog. The sensitive time for socialization is approximately 4 to 12 weeks of age, and puppies between the ages of 8 to 10 weeks often experience a fear period. Any negative life experiences that occur during this period can make a lasting impression for the rest of the dog's life. This is one of the many reasons why puppies bred in commercial breeding facilities and sold over the internet or in pet stores tend to have so many behavioral issues. Unfortunately, the common experience for these puppies consists of impersonal rearing in a socially deprived environment with limited handling by humans, followed by premature separation from their mother and then traumatic trip to the pet store, all occurring during a time when positive experiences are critical. Commercial breeding facilities don't provide this. Real, reputable breeders screen dogs before breeding them to minimize the risk for serious, expensive, painful abnormalities such as hip dysplasia, cardiac diseases, and blindness. Part of what you pay a reputable breeder for is their expertise, medical screening, and proper socialization of their pups. It's been proven time and time again that many dogs sold online or in pet stores are unhealthy, unsocialized, often have genetic defects, and inbred. Wholesale breeding of puppies only guarantees the quality of merchandise will be poor. Large commercial dog breeders do not and cannot screen their breeding stock for genetic inherited problems. Therefore, as a result, many puppies end up discarded at shelters when problems arise. It makes no sense whatsoever to continue manufacturing dogs and cats when over 5 million are being euthanized a year for the lack of space. I've dedicated the last 5 months photographing puppy mill deliveries in semi-trucks from the Midwest, over 20 hours away, pulled USDA license numbers for brokers and breeders which have been traced back to puppy mills with deplorable conditions, pulled inspection reports for such breeders including their multiple PO boxes and aliases and horrific violations, yet are still allowed to stay in business. And more recently, I engaged with a consumer who came forward a few days ago with her DNA results she paid for to prove her dog was a La Pica shit. Excuse me. Lhasa Apso, Pekingese, Shih Tzu, when the store owner swore it was a purebred Shih Tzu. I stand here today to ask you to enact a new law, Chapter 153, mandating the spaying and neutering of cats and dogs, mandating animal disclosures have at least 25 square feet for each animal on display, and at least 100 square feet of space for each animal on premises, mandating the fire alarms and sprinklers in all pet shops, and mandating proof that puppies aren't coming from commercial breeders, which is a euphemism for puppy mills. I thank you for your time. Puppies are products.
Good morning. If you could share your name and address for the record, please.
Danica Ruki, 2
269 Sycamore Place, Merrick, New York. I'm here today to not only urge the board, but to urge them to pass the pet store law, but to thank you, Kate Murray, for your willingness to get this accomplished in an effort to protect puppy mill dogs and cats. I'd also like to point out that for the first time in 5 years, this government has tapped into its greatest resources and called on the knowledgeable, dedicated advocates who have each diligently and passionately tried to convince the board to recognize and find preventative, humane solutions to the overpopulation and suffering of our animals. When the government and advocates can work together so cooperatively and achieve the progress seen in the content of this law, that is a great success in itself. Please take this giant step forward by passing the law, and let this be an example of the good things to come for the dogs and cats of Hempstead and beyond. If passed, Hempstead can once again lead the way and be the first to acknowledge and resolve the issue of puppy mill abuse and set the groundwork for other municipalities and villages to do their part in putting an end to it. Thank you.
Georgia Plenty? Good morning. You can share your name and address?
Okay, I'm not near as knowledgeable as a lot of these people, but I've been doing a lot of research. And I can tell you this is a wonderful law. If it passes, it's a great step forward, okay? These dogs that are being sold in these stores you know, just objects, are coming from puppy mills, which are horrendous. And if you ever, any of you ladies and gentlemen up there have ever gone online and maybe just take a look at what this represents, it's horrible. Anyway, this is a great step forward, and municipalities across the country are going even further, but you gotta start somewhere. They're banning the sale of puppies and kittens from pet stores. The state of Arizona has completely stopped it unless they come from a rescue or a shelter, and that's an entire state. So all I can say is, to all out there, you know, this is a wonderful, wonderful start, okay? And I just pray to God, I really do, for the sake of these animals and these people who are buying these, not knowing about puppy mills and the horror that's there, and these horrible conditions that they're coming from, being thrown into a semi-truck and then dropped in a pet store, waiting for somebody to come in and plunk down $800, and it's horrible. So if you can start somewhere, I would ask you, please.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Diane. Good morning.
I am Madden, 243 Cherry Place, East Madden.
Thank you.
I have to start with saying that when you can make me happy, my standards are so high, it's a great thing. And Kate Murray, I thank you for recognizing the puppy mill problem and for working with us to find some kind of compromise that will do exactly what you wanted to do and keep these puppy mill puppies out of Hempstead. And this is a great start.
If I could interrupt, a number of people have singled me out. Let me assure everybody, every one of my colleagues is 150% on board as well.
You know, I think I turned to that because when you spoke about the zoning, which I do credit you for, nearly a year ago with Joe Riley, town attorney, he said you were very interested in doing that, and it's very much along the lines with that. So I know that a year ago you wanted to see something happen to benefit and protect these animals. So I do apologize, I do credit the board, we count on them to pass this. What this law does ultimately it does reduce the amount of animals being surrendered or received by the shelter long term. It is a long-term plan, but it's a plan. It's better than having nothing in place. And I'd like you to keep in mind that when the pet book dealers showed up for the Nassau County law, which was very poor and not effective, they were all cheering. They're not here today. They should be here cheering today if they're interested in protecting animals. The spay-neuter, as far as that goes, it has been successfully done. It's something the shelter has done right all these years, for many years. Spay-neutering these young animals to, again, address the overpopulation of animals. It's been effective, it works, and in addition to that, what will benefit a lot regarding pet stores is that it will put an end to the continued genetic disorders that not just start at puppy mills, but because these pet stores are selling these dogs with hip dysplasia and all kinds of genetic disorders, spay-neutering that will stop that. When you think back on when we were kids, we all got our animals, at least I can speak for myself, from a reputable breeder, and we knew the background, we knew the parents of the dogs, we knew where they were coming from, or if your neighbor had a hoops litter, that's where these dogs came from. And I think by looking at the overpopulation now, society has made a mistake in the way that we have to undo this. And this law is a way of doing that. It's a way of undoing the damage that's been done, as well as protecting the animals and the consumers. So I do urge you to pass this. I can't thank you enough for considering it. I hope you do it. I stand behind it 100%. If any amendments are made, I hope it's to further your goal and the town's goal to protect animals. And again, thank you. Let's get this done.
Elizabeth Stein.
Good morning.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Murray, if you would bear with me for just 2 minutes, because what I would like to do before I do have something written, but before I get to that, I would like to respond to some of the comments that were made initially by the two gentlemen who began this portion. And I'm sorry, I don't recall their names. But I think, I'm not going to say that it was disingenuous on their parts, but I think it's a little telling that they wanted to adjourn this meeting because they didn't have an opportunity to thoroughly review the bill, but yet they seem to have quite a number of very specific comments with respect to the bill. So I think and also having worked with Town Attorney Rob on the various versions, and I thank you, and Heather, I know you're here, and I can't tell you enough how wonderful they were to work with. The drafts have not really varied that significantly, so whatever they're seeing today is quite similar to the various drafts that we've been going through. So I do believe that they have had an ample opportunity to review this. And just going to a few of their points. As far as the 100 square feet requirement going forward, and the comment was made that it does not apply to the health and welfare of the animals. I would have to disagree with that because the comment was made that these very small mom and pop stores actually have a lot of animals, which I would have to say is not good. A small store should not be warehousing puppies and kittens. It cannot be in the best interest of that animal to be warehoused. So I think that going forward, I was hoping that the requirement would be applicable to existing pet stores. It's not, I can appreciate that, but I do believe that going forward, this is something that absolutely should be applied to any future pet stores. There is no reason that they should be warehousing puppies and kittens. As far as the spay-neuter requirement, the comment was made that the ASPCA does not support mandatory spay-neuter. This is not the typical mandatory spay-neuter. The ASPCA fully supported the spay-neuter provision in the New York City bill, as does the Humane Society of the United States. I'm sorry that Ryan Shapiro couldn't be here today. I know that he was sending comments to the board in support of this bill, in support of the spay-neuter provision, particularly in support of, if I could just have a few more minutes, the requirement that the pet stores not be able to source from brokers. I think what is being significantly overlooked is that the Class B brokers are not just transporters. They are, Supervisor Murphy, you look like you want to ask me a question. Oh, okay. What they do is they are drawing puppies from all different Class A breeders. They are warehousing them in the most abysmal of conditions, and there have been numerous exposés. And I have shared some of the information with Mr. Roth. I would be happy to share it with the town board as well, that the HSUS has done, particularly with respect to the Hunt Corporation and how they deal with the animals. I believe 75% of the animals that do end up in pet stores come from these brokers. It is a problem. A pet store the owner of a pet store should want to know where that puppy or kitten has come from. They should want to know the breeder that has been breeding that puppy or kitten. So I fully support the fact that there is that broker language, that the only place that a pet store in Hempstead would be able to source an animal from would be a Class A breeder that has not been subject to the very specific citations that are listed in the law. Let me just add that getting back to the Animal Welfare Act, which is the federal law that the gentleman did respond, that they were discussing. In fact, the Animal Welfare Act is the bare bones minimum of compliance for a breeder. Bare bones. If you go on the animal welfare site itself, on the USDA, it says that these are the minimum standards. Compliance with the Animal Welfare Act in no way guarantees that these puppies and kittens have been bred in a healthy and safe manner. On the contrary, the Animal Welfare Act does not have any bearing on the mother dogs that are being bred endlessly and mercilessly year after year and then being killed when they can no longer be bred. The Animal Welfare Act has nothing to do with that whatsoever. So saying that a breeder is in compliance with the Animal Welfare Act is really a smokescreen, and it is basically saying nothing. But unfortunately, it's the best that we can do under the circumstances. As far as the sprinkler systems, I'm going to wrap up. I think it is, again, disingenuous when these pet stores are selling puppies and kittens for thousands of dollars to say that they cannot afford to put in a sprinkler system. And in terms of the shelter, the animal shelters that are again the recipients of these puppies and kittens, nobody is suggesting that they're going directly from the pet store to the shelter. What we're saying is that they're being bought by unsuspecting consumers. These puppies particularly have congenital, behavioral, emotional, physical maladies. They are purchased for thousands of dollars, and then people have to pour thousands of dollars into these puppies and kittens, and that's why they're ending up in the animal shelters. So I applaud you. I'm sorry I took so much of your time. I still didn't cover everything that I wanted to. I look forward to working with Mr. Rowe on this in the future, and thank you very much.
Christine Alcation? Good morning.
My name is Christine Alberti, and I live in Comac, New York, in Suffolk County. I've been very involved in this for many years. I started with the New York State bill to even get regulation, which will allow for local regulation. New York State was one of the only in the country that did not, specifically prohibited local regulation of pet dealers. So when people come up here and say, oh, we've never had a problem, our pet stores are good, it's because there was no regulation. It was only from New York State. New York State's Department of Ag and Markets is one woman named Anna Colon. She is responsible for every puppy mill and every pet dealer in the entire state. One person in Albany. So she can't do this job. It's impossible. New York State says, okay, now counties can regulate, local municipalities can regulate. I'm in Suffolk County, and I know Nassau is the same. We have to beg Consumer Affairs. We have to bring the proof ourselves to Consumer Affairs to get them to go investigate pet stores. They haven't fined all of them, and we've shown direct violations of the county law on every pet dealer in Suffolk County. I am certain Nassau is the same. There's something called the CVR, just real quick. It's an interstate shipping record. So when puppies are shipped from Missouri or Kansas or Nebraska, Iowa, there's it's called a certified vet inspection. The CVI is nothing more than a vet physically looking at the dog, not an examination, and saying it appears free. It actually says that, appears free of defects. So in that 30 seconds, the puppies go through. Hunt Corp is a processing facility. So when the CVRs are done for Hunt, they have vets on staff. I will have you know that the vets on staff at Hunt Corporation estimate themselves that 220 pounds a month of dead puppies are dumped in the ponds on the property. So whereas Hunt Corporation gets gleaming, perfect USDA inspection reports on the inside, the Missouri Department of Natural Resources fined them for pollution for filling their ponds on the property with dead puppies. So there is no way that Hunt Corporation or any other broker is actually doing the job it's supposed to. So when you say get the broker route, I'm actually very in favor of that, because I just want to read from one USDA inspection report itself. I printed this database online where you can get the USDA inspection report. You can search by breeder name or USDA number. This is Justin and Lene Jackson of Jackson Kennels in Kansas. The CVIs that we foil from New York State, which by the way are 6 months late because they're so backed up, show that pet stores on Long Island have purchased pets from here, even since the law has gone into effect. So they're already violating the law. This shows 1 direct and 4 indirect violations, even though the law says chip. One adult male Shiba had a swollen mass of tissue between the middle toes. The dog was unable to place any weight on his foot. One adult lab has a swollen mass of tissue between the middle toes. Both had it on the middle toes of the right front and rear feet. An adult female elk hound has a swollen mass of tissue. A Siberian husky was observed limping. The licensee stated that this was the first time it had been noticed. On page 2, one adult female German Shepherd has an open wound on the top of its ear. The wound was moist, reddened, and inflamed. There was also a yellowish, creamy-looking discharge around the edge of the wound. This is 5 dogs in one direct violation. Housing and general facilities. So 1 violation for housing and general facilities affects 6 dogs, 1 dog and 5 puppies. Another outbuilding, they're not even facilities, they're sheds, they're tool sheds, they're rabbit hutches, they're not facilities, they're not nice places. 2 clean shepherds, 4 dogs are in contact with this area. This is another housing and general facilities, 10 dogs, another housing, 10 dogs, 18 dogs in another. But every housing in general is 1 violation. Feeding, filth in the food, crime or rust. So anyway, these few violations, when a pet store has only a few indirect violations, they actually affect 5 dogs directly affected and 54 are indirectly affected by cruelty. Now, one more time, real bit. In September of 2014, Chester Gibson, the head of the USDA's Animal Care Division, which is an oxymoron, and Robert Gibbons, the USDA head of the Midwestern region for breeders, went to a breeder meeting and apologized to the breeders for enforcing the law at all. There was a 2010 audit report of the breeding facilities that was scathing. A lot of people, reacted, said this has to stop, we can't allow it. Since the focus is off that now, it's been 5 years. These two people who were supposed to care about the animals are actually siding with the bad breeders. So they actually said, and this has been reported, it's been in the newspaper, USDA officials told breeders that, quote, if at any time a violation has the potential of affecting your business, please call our office immediately and let us know, emphasizing that the USDA stands ready to enable breeders to market their dogs to stores. So this inspection report was September 2014. September 8th. This was done on September 30th, where they told the breeders. On February 12, 2015, this is the inspection report for the same kennel.
I've given you many minutes.
Okay, sorry.
Like we have lots of folks, 3 minutes.
But anyway, there are no violations since that, so the USDA can't be trusted to do their job, the state can't be trusted to enforce, and the counties aren't doing it. It is really up to the local municipalities.
Thank you for testifying. Just as a reminder, try to keep our comments, everybody I know is very passionate about it, and we love that. But if you could try to keep your comments within 3 minutes, we would appreciate it, so everybody can be heard. Deborah Berry, thank you, Ms. Montague. Deborah Berry? Oh, sorry. No problem. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm prepared. I didn't know I had a chance.
You checked, yes, that means you get it right.
And yes, it was never died, and the address is 670 Bolton Avenue, Bolton, New York.
Thank you.
I'm here because the pet stores, they have to believe that there is no problem with pet stores. And if you're all here today, there is a problem. There obviously is a problem. I went to a pet store, I thought that the volunteers and everyone against pet stores, they were being extremists. You know, there are some people that are extreme about it, saying, but I'm going to scare the dog, and the dog was sick. I almost had to put the dog down. It is not just the dog that is suffering, it's the family, it is the children, it is the whole family. It is very difficult to see a dog sick. And when you're, the best thing you should do is put it down, okay? I found out she had an autoimmune disorder, and I'm able to treat her with certain supplements and food, but it took me a long time to get there. And for the first 2 years, I wondered if I would be better off putting her down for herself. So when you consider all the suffering that goes on with the dogs, with the families, with the volunteers, so many people are affected by this. For the benefit of a few mom and pop stores that do not run their business responsibly, if they ran their business responsibly, we would not be here today discussing this. There would be no problem. There is a problem. I bring my dog here today, and I can show you she's not healthy. There is a problem. And I want to thank you all for bringing this up. Thank you.
Keith Stevens? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Keith Stevens. I reside in Bethpage, but I was born and raised in East Meadow. Good morning, Supervisor Murray and all other esteemed council members. I urge each of you to vote in favor of adopting Chapter 153. I thank you for your patience in listening to the numerous arguments made by all of the people in support of this, and I will try not to be repetitious of what they already said. They were all well spoken. Simply put, adopting Chapter 153 is the humane thing to do. Rather than listen to me, listen to quotes from the ASPCA. ASPCA, who is a mainstream group, defines a puppy mill as, quote, a large-scale commercial dog breeding operation that places profit over the well-being of its dogs, who are often severely neglected, and acts without regard to responsible breeding practices. According to the Humane Society of the United States, puppy mills contribute to pet overpopulation and cause countless dogs a lifetime of suffering and squalor in their wire cages. Simply put, animals in pet stores are not just dollar signs with four legs. No one can deny the fact that pet stores obtain most, if not all, of their companion animals from these horrible places. Enacting Chapter 153 would of course require pet stores to provide a talented certified list of breeders, prevent pet stores from obtaining animals from breeders convicted or investigated for animal cruelty, prevent pet store owners from providing their animals to medical research laboratories, prevent pet store owners from euthanizing companion animals, and require pet store owners to spay or neuter their pets before releasing them to the public. In addition, enacting Chapter 153 would provide our companion animals with more room to stretch, roam, and play while held in confinement. It would provide them with measures of safety against potential fires, and it will provide them with adequate food, water, and exercise. One thing my colleagues did not state is how enacting Chapter 153 would benefit the human beings who reside in the town of Hempstead. I have heard countless complaints from people who adopt cats or dogs from pet store owners to only learn shortly after the adoption that these animals are sick or deformed. Preventing pet store owners from obtaining their animals from subpar, if not criminal, organizations who overbreed their animals and fail to provide the necessary medical care would surely cut down on the amount of lame and genetically deformed animals that are adopted out to the public. Further, requiring these pet store owners to spay or neuter their animals would provide some relief for our animal shelters, as the number of abandoned, unwanted animals would surely decrease. The attorney who spoke for the pet store dealers was very well spoken, I would admit, but don't let his intelligence fool you. Basically, the arguments came down to two words: money and superfluous. Basically, they're saying that you need to limit the animals to, limit 10 to 12 animals per store. Why? For money. Well, these animals need to play, eat, and sleep. Fire sprinkler system, too expensive. Gee, what's more important? Spending money or saving animals from dying alive in the fire? Let's see, breeders, the breeder law, superfluous, so what? How would it hurt to include that in the town of Hempstead legislation? What else? Restrict to Class A. He said it's impossible to only deal with Class A breeders because they have to travel upstate. So what? That's the cost of doing business. If they don't like it, get out. Next, euthanizing animals. They say they don't euthanize them, so there's no issue. That's great. So why does it hurt to put that into the law? Spay neuter. They said there's potential medical problems. I don't disagree with that, and I don't disagree that they shouldn't have to bear the cost of the vet. But that only should be put on the consumer. Next, they say they comply with the minimum requirements of the federal government. Really? That's something to be proud of, the minimum requirements of the federal government? Local governments have a role to be more restrictive on people. Okay. Members of the council, you can either adopt Chapter 153 and be known as a council of still the puppy mills of all their inherent evils and help promote the welfare of both humans and animals, or reject 153 and be known as a council that succumb to corporate greed. The choice is yours.
Good afternoon.
Felix Procacci, 1165 Orange Street, Franklin Square, New York. In the law, why is the pet store being considered a place of public assembly? And I see that it's not in the definition in the town law.
There are some other portions of the building zone ordinance that will have to be amended if and when this bill is passed. And so that's why you don't see in other places. But the reason it's called a place of public assembly is to make it comply with the various rules concerning places of public assembly.
Okay. In the case, all my questions that have to do with clarification. As far as a pet dealer who breeds pets out of their home, would that be considered pet store, providing they do breed above the number that's specified in the law, if they breed and raise and sell dogs out of their home, would that be considered a pet store or a place of public assembly?
Yes.
What additional fees would be charged, if any, pet store owner by considering this place, his place of business, a place of public assembly?
Well, just the application fee and the inspection fees to get the public assembly license.
Is it nominal or is it excessive?
I don't know what the fees are. Building departments here, they can probably answer that for you, but I don't know. What the fee is.
Commissioner?
Supervisor, I believe it's $100.
Does this law allow the town to inspect the premises at any time without notice, even if it's a private home that is only being suspected of being a puppy mill or a pet store, or, you know?
Obviously, we're not in the habit of breaking private homes, but as to places, retail businesses, yes, they can go in there anytime.
They could go into the back room, and just not in the retail
They're
area.
in the apartment or the.
There's a basement and
Animal
stuff.
control officer would have the right to.
So they could go through without any getting special court orders or anything like that.
Well, hold on a second, let me not say right, but there's thousands of cases on that issue, about court orders and things. So the answer is, we feel we have a right. There's thousands of cases on that issue. Whether or not the building inspector has the right to just go in. We feel we do have the right.
I know that the town code does indicate that building inspectors are peace officers, and I think if I remember correctly, and I have the text in front of me, that they have the right to just show their credentials and enter someone's property. And there's a lot of contradicting law that states you can't do that. So,
Correct, but there is case law that goes both ways.
as far as records being kept, with the, as far as the euthanization, medical records, breeders, would the town be able, with this law, able to just demand these records on the spot that say, the pet store on ABC, we want these records, what you've done between May and
You need to be reasonable. I mean, a building inspector can walk in the door and say, let me see your records, and the retail store owner can say, okay, they're with my accountant or something.
No, I understand.
The answer is yes, you would demand, we would ask for the records.
So
And they have to
they would have to supply, yes, no specified period of time, when would they have to comply with that?
a reasonable period.
Reasonable. I know that the law uses the word reasonable a lot, and unfortunately, some people think different about what reasonable is. Okay, all my questions are good, done. Thank you.
Mary Ellen Craig?
My question was just about the laws relating to Uniondale, and they were all in the area of Northern Parkway School, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Does anybody else wish to be heard on this matter? Everyone else, we'll get to you all. Good afternoon. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Chris Ronnie, I'm 29 Carolina Avenue, Hempstead. I feel that this is I feel that as a prudent society, we need to pass this law because we need to make it less easy for people to get puppies and kittens. I believe that it's just like my dogs are like my children. And I believe that we need to take our time and not have them in stores like clothes. Dogs and cats are not like a piece of clothing that we can put on and have at our convenience. It hurts my heart because I bought a dog. I bought my beautiful pygmies from a puppy mill. And my daughter worked there. And she was sick. And my daughter had a heart for this beautiful pygmies. And she nurtured this pygmies that came in sick. And quite a few of those animals came in sick to these puppy mills, and you had to separate them from the other animals. And I believe that this should be passed. I don't care who doesn't do it.
Just because my mother said, because your friend jumps off a bridge, will you do the same thing? If nobody else does it, town of Hempstead, we should set the example. We should set the example. It's a shame that that lawyer said, or that gentleman that came with that lawyer, don't believe the hype. We can't, how does he know that in our shelter, those dogs did not, or puppies, or those cats and dogs didn't come from those puppy mills? He can't check the DNA. It's unfortunate that the euthanasia is happening in our town shelters, and that it's unfortunate that the statistics show that we're flatlining. We should be able to, more people should be adopting and not buying, because we can't feed ourselves here in the town of Hempstead. And it's a shame before God that people are not adopting from our shelters. And I saw your push this summer to adopt. But we can't afford to feed ourselves because we can't pay these high taxes. So let's encourage people not to buy and to adopt. And to go around and get these cats and dogs and let's spay and neuter them so that they're not running all over the place. You know, in Hurricane Sandy, a lot of people lost their animals. And so it's unfortunate that it's on the taxpayers that we're paying. It doesn't cost $500 to spay and neuter. Let's stop telling lies. Because I know it doesn't cost $500 to spay and neuter. Let's tell the truth and shame the devil. That's what my mother said. And I know Kate Perry and Miss Boothby, y'all know my family. We're gonna do what's right for the town of Hempstead. And let's be leaders, not followers. Let's lead in the state of New York.
I'm sorry, I did have actually a few more speaking slips, I'm sorry. That said indicated yes. I have Margie Morvita. And then I have Lucille Spina and Lillian Glennon. And the yes speaking slips. Good afternoon.
I am here today in support of the
Could you speak?
proposed legislation for 153, and I would also just like to make one comment on what the attorney had said about refer to animals as products. That's offensive. Is that better? Did you hear what I said? The attorney for the pet shop owners just made a comment. He referred to the animals there as products, which I thought was offensive. With that said, I would also like to just talk briefly about your shelter. I recently adopted, rescued a pit bull 2.5 months ago. I had the pleasure of working with Nancy Giras, Wendy Cariella, and Dolores Stormo. She's the volunteer coordinator. The volunteers that were involved in her adoption created a webpage for her, which basically led to me adopting her. In addition, they were able to do a fundraiser and raise $2,000 in less than a month to have a behaviorist come to my house and work with Paprika, which is working out wonderfully. So I guess my first question would be with respect to the director.
Well,
Yes.
This is specifically about the legislation itself.
Okay.
You know, we're trying to provide remarks, that's all we take up this point. Is that, we have time for miscellaneous comments, if you have things off, or things to say off the legislation, I would respectfully ask you to say them at the end of the formal portion of the meeting.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Lucille Defina, 2749 Merrick Avenue, Merrick. I, of course, completely support this bill, and I want to say thank you to Kate Murray and the board for making this happen. And if this bill can be passed the way it is now, the way it's drafted, I will actually be proud to be a resident of Town Hempstead. And I have to say, in the 5 years that I'm coming here to town board meetings, I have never been able to say that in regards to how we care for our animals. Of course, this is most important to me because this does affect our animal shelter in every way. Being an animal rescuer, a cat rescuer who lived inside that shelter for 14 years, how anyone can say that these animals do not come to our town shelter is speaking purely from ignorance.
That's right.
As he was speaking, a few images came to mind, and I cannot tell you how many mornings I've walked into the Town Hempstead shelter to find in the sick room and the isolation room and the back room beautiful adult cats, Persians, Angoras, Turkish Angoras, Russian Blues, who were in horrendous condition. And whether I rescued them or got someone else to come in to rescue them, or the shelter cleaned them up, made them healthy, and put them on the adoption floor, that is still our tax dollars working to make something very wrong right. And that's not fair. This is costing us money. These animals are coming in horrendous shape. They are being used purely for monetary gain of a few pet store owners, and that's not right. So this bill can really make a difference. I have also seen many kittens come in, and I'll never forget a litter that I found in the animal shelter of hairless kittens filled, covered with ringworm. And when you trace the records, you would see that they got dumped in a box. Other kittens were turned in, a Persian kitten with hair loss, which was also ringworm, traced that back, only to find a woman bought the kitten, had the kitten for like 8 weeks, went to the pet store wouldn't take back the kitten. This kitten, she couldn't afford to spend thousands of dollars. Where did it end up? In the shelter. She was afraid to tell them when she surrendered the kitten. So the kitten didn't come in as a purebred with papers. It just came in as a stray, found. Meanwhile, that kitten cost the taxpayers, again, thousands of dollars. And this is all for what? Just to help a few pet store owners? When Mr. Glass said, well, by what you have in this bill, we can't compete with other pet store owners. Well, what about the poor animals in our shelter? They can't compete either. And this is who we have to protect. And as local government, I am so proud that you're looking to do that. And I hope that you all stay very strong and that you stand by this bill and you protect the residents and the taxpayers and our animals who are suffering in the animal shelter instead of a few pet stores that are looking to make a huge profit. Thank you.
William Leonard. Share your name and address.
My name is Lillian Lennon. I'm from Eastern Riches, Suffolk County. I'm retired high school teacher. and I volunteer for RSVP Inc. Animal Welfare and Rescue out of Riverhead. I was happy to see some other Suffolk County people here supporting this, because Suffolk County has already passed a puppy mill law, and we're glad that Nassau County is finally getting on board. So, long overdue legislation. It's imperative that we develop the protocols necessary to assure the welfare and safety of the animals and the care of the pet industry throughout this country, this county. More important, which by the way cannot be emphasized enough, there needs to be complete, transparent disclosure as to exactly where the puppies and kittens originate, so as to assure that this same industry is not patronizing puppy mill distributors notorious for their inadequate deplorable conditions, which they continue to breed animals with little, if any, regard to the care of the mothers or the offspring. Ironically, since reputable breeders would never sell their puppies or kittens to a pet store, it's conceivable that the source of the majority of these animals do originate from such facilities. If you connect the dots, you'll find the source. That being said, it does not matter, and this is a very important point we made in Suffolk County, because we had a lot of pet store dealers constantly bringing up how clean that pet store was, how impeccably they take care of the animals. This is the main point I'm trying to make here. It doesn't matter how well the animals are being cared for currently at the pet store, or whether the aesthetics and cleanliness of the pet store meets the standards above what's currently regulated. No one is arguing that. We would like to know where their, as they call it, quote unquote, products come from. Because as far as we're concerned, that's exactly how these animals are viewed, as commodities, as products, to support the livelihood of a pet store proprietor. That's unacceptable. With the millions of animals euthanized in shelters, homeless strays, and animals awaiting a forever home through the many rescue groups throughout this country, it makes little sense for consumers to choose a pet store over a reputable breeder, a shelter, or a rescue organization. This industry, this pet store industry, it's had its heyday. It's over. It's archaic. It's time to join the rest of us in creating a more humane county that pioneers a compassionate approach by providing animals that are already here in a home to live out their life in peace. Although spay and neuter campaigns are making a huge difference in reducing the magnitude of unwanted litters in this country, we still have plenty of puppies and kittens for the consumer to adopt, keyword adopt, not buy, without the need to patronize a pet store. We applaud many of the provisions in this new legislation 153, specifically those which require, with few exceptions, that all animals leaving any pet store be spayed or neutered. This in itself not only reduces the amount of unwanted animals that end up being surrendered to the shelters, but it is the most humane and preventive action that can be taken to reduce euthanasia numbers. And in summary, that being said, we urge you, Supervisor Murray, and the board to pass this law, and in addition, to resolve the issues at the Hempstead Animal Shelter through progressive programs that provide all animals an opportunity to be adopted into a loving home. Thank you, Supervisor Murray and the board.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. That's the end of the speaking system. Could you share your name and address?
My name is Manuel Esposito, 930 Wallace Avenue, Baltimore, New York.
Thank you.
I am a member of the Dalmatian Club of Greater New York, and our membership covers the state of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and New England. Most of our members are show dog breeders, and I can honestly say that no member would ever sell a Dalmatian to a pet store or dog. When I wanted to create a dog, I did my research. There are breed-specific clubs with every breed, and with the internet, very easy to find. Also, there are breed-specific rescues. I am actually the Long Island contact for the Dalmatians, and when the Dalmatian ends up in a shelter on Long Island, I am contacted, I pull them, and I get them to our breed rescues. I also volunteer at Roadhouse Rescue in Freeport and Bobby and the Strays in Freeport. We get every breed and in our rescue, and then we have your very new designer breeds, which is just a good old mutt. So to say that there's no choice in getting a dog from around here from just a pet store is not true. Responsible breeders help test and take care of their stud dogs, mothers, and litters. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, the attorney for some of the pet shop owners. I want to thank everybody who spoke. Mr. Brown?
Would you just indulge in 1 minute from these two owners, just like we heard at the end?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. If you could share your name and just for the
Village 2560, Sunrise Highway, Belmont.
Sunrise Highway where?
In Belmont.
In Belmont, okay. Let's make sure, yeah, we can't really hear you. Yeah. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Could you start over the report is asking?
Janice Nunnarejo, 2560 Sunrise Highway, Belmont, New York.
Thank you.
Joseph Solicito, 745 Monte Avenue, Wanto.
Thank you.
I guess I'll start. I wasn't prepared, but I think we need to take a moment to defend ourselves here a little bit. I grew up in East Meadow, and I believe, like in any business, there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And when you spend the majority of your professional life trying to do things the right way, and essentially feel bullied in a situation where when you have laws and you have facts in front of you, and anybody can go to the extreme one way, I just feel like reading this is not fact, and it's not benefiting the animals, it's just hurting us, and I just don't feel like it's fair.
Thank you.
I can tell you all day I can tell you all day long how great my store is and how much I care for my puppies. I love what I do, and I take pride in my store, and I do invite all of you to come and see my puppies. I give back to the community through my pet store. I pay my taxes, and I employ town of Hempstead residents. For the last 11 years, I have built a working relationship with dog distributors and dog breeders. I give attention to making sure that the dog breeders that my puppies come from breeders that care just as much about the parents of the puppies as I do. I'm not going to tell you there aren't bad people that do wrong things, but I do not get from it, as well as Joe. I have to know that the dog breeders that I work with have the same standards as I do. As far as your town shelter is concerned, it is not full with my puppies. As you look on your website, there was 108 dogs, and out of the 108, 106 were pit bulls and pit bull mixes. I do not sell these, as well as all of my puppies are microchipped, that God forbid they do end up in your shelter, their owners are able to be contacted and returned to them. There is no way in 3 minutes that I could go over the things in this proposal that will put me out of business. This proposal is based on incomplete information, and some information is just not true. There are people out there that no matter what laws are in place, wouldn't be happy until our stores are shut down. We have no problem working with Mr. Ron, Ms. Crosby, but unfortunately, we have met with them, and everything we discussed was nothing in here. So on Friday when we received this, was nothing that we had discussed or agreed upon. It is completely one-sided and unfair.
We can only get into this or start something like this as an animal lover. So if you were putting things in front of us that was for their well-being, it wouldn't need to be in opposition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As I was beginning to say, I want to thank Mr. Brown and the pet shop owners who just testified. I want to thank everybody who testified today. Obviously, this is an issue that brings up a lot of passions on both sides of the table. Mr. Brown, you had asked for an adjournment. We felt it was important to go forward, but as I had said at the beginning of this hearing, we can, and again, not telegraphed how my colleagues will feel, but we would like to keep the record open. So if there's anybody on any side, either side of the issue, anybody who could not make it here today, who feels that they want to add their opinion, a written letter, whatever it might be, to the record, we will be happy to receive that additional input. And with that being said, may I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Supervisor, Madam Supervisor, I move that the public hearing be closed and the decision be reserved.
I second the motion.
Supervisor Murray.
Aye.
Councilman Encino. Councilman Blakeman. Councilman Boosley. Councilman Hughes. Councilman Santino. Councilman King Sweeney.
Okay, the decision is reserved. I think this is a very important piece of legislation. Going forward, I think it's a progressive piece of legislation, but the record will remain open. And again, the town board would be happy to receive further and additional comments on this important issue. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you. Please call the next public hearing.
Application of V.S. Corona Inc. to rezone from Residence B District to Business X District in Valley Stream. I also have a companion application of V.S. Corona Inc. for permit to include existing gasoline service station within GSS District in Valley Stream.
Okay, the court reporter needs to take a 5-minute break. We will do so.
That's a great book. I didn't have a chance to read it, so I don't know. No, I read the first page, but I skimmed through
What's going on? Anything ever come up with taxes or those sides that it's supposed to
Oh, really? Yeah, I was looking at the videos, I didn't see myself in it. I think that was the video behind me right now. Oh, could you kind of email it to me? My personal account? Yes. I'd love to look at it. Is that yours? Thank you so very much. No, I'm glad it was you're such nice people, and I think it was great. I'm glad. You know, but it's, I just enjoyed presenting. So I enjoyed
I think this is all, let it all hang out.
What they did. Thank
Right, what's that animal? Look at an animal.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to resume the town board meeting. Mr. O'Brien.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Honorable members of the board, Kevin O'Brien from the firm of Murphy Bartholomew O'Brien, offices at 22 Jericho Turnpike, here this morning representing the applicant. I also have here with me Mr. Chris Tartaglia. He is a principal, principal of High Point Engineering, and the design professionals that have prepared the plans which are before the board. So any technical questions, I'll refer them to Mr. Tartaglia. And I also have Mr. Kyle Son, who's the principal operator of the location. So if there are any operational questions, I can refer them to him. Just off the record, what a great day in the town of Hempstead. Nice, warm weather like this. We're going to be thinking about this in January when we're shoveling our walk. So I'm enjoying this nice warm weather. Okay, this is an application, and also this is companion applications. On behalf of BS Corona, there are two applications. So in the interest of time and expediency, I requested they be consolidated and heard as one, as much as they essentially involve the same facts and circumstances.
Without objection, so ordered.
The application involves 850 Corona Avenue, And essentially, the sum and substance, and we're taking advantage of the new technology, which we have up on the board. So what is on the board right now is the survey. And the two applications which are essentially before the board, one is to rezone a portion of the property from Residence B, it's in a residential zoning district, to Business X, and then to incorporate the entire premises within the GSS zoning district, because that's the proper zoning district for a gas and service station. So if I can, on the well, let's see, go to the next plan, which would be the site plan. Oh, no, that's the elevational drawing, and it kind of shows where it is. But here's the site plan. And in the site plan, just to kind of depict, let me see if I get this thing. No, it doesn't really show. But you will see it perhaps on your screen. There's like a little red line, and it's on, there we go. Oh, you got it. Okay, but yeah, it doesn't work on the screen. But that's, okay, if you see that red line, okay, everything to the west of that is essentially in the residential zoning district. And everything to the east of that is in the business district. The property all currently functions as an existing gas and service station, so we're not seeking to alter the boundaries of the property, but just incorporate what's actually within the gas and service station itself. So part of the application is to rezone that property to the west into the business zoning district, and then incorporate the entire property within the GSS zoning district, because once again, that is the proper zoning district in the town of Hempstead. Essentially the genesis of the application, I don't know, let me just give a little bit of history, that the service station's been operating as a gas and service station since in about the early 1950s. It has had the underground gasoline storage tanks replaced. However, right now we have 3 8,000-gallon single wall fiberglass underground gasoline storage tanks, and in accordance with the new Nassau County Fire Marshal requirements, they must be removed by 2016. So the impetus of the application is to upgrade at least the underground improvements of the site, and then at the same time, in order to do so, we have to be incorporated into the GSS zoning district, and then make certain upgrades to the actual site itself. As far as the pump islands are concerned, and their location on the site plan, as you see them, there's sort of like two, I guess, khaki or brown areas. Location will remain the same. The location of the pump islands and the dispensers will remain the same. There are currently 2 dispensers, multi-product dispensers, running parallel to the Corona, and then there's the other dispensers which are running parallel to Dutch Broadway. So they would remain the same. What we are proposing, though, is to erect a canopy over those dispensing areas. As far as the building itself, the size of the building would remain the same. The exterior of the building would be upgraded. The interior of the building would essentially remain the same. There are currently 4 repair bays with 4 lifts in them, and then there's an office and convenience area. So part of the relief that we are seeking is to be able to operate essentially what we like to sell. Continued sale of petroleum products, sale of convenience store products, and the repair of automobiles. This actually happens to be, as far as Town of Hempstead and Nassau County standards go, a pretty large service station. We've got, I think it's like roughly 140 linear feet on Dutch Broadway, and I think just shy of 200 feet on Corona Avenue. So it is a good-sized piece of property. We actually meet all the parking requirements. And what we're also looking to do at the same time is, if I go to the next slide, I think we might have some elevational drawings that where we would, you can see the building now, if you're familiar with it. It looks like a building that was built in the 1950s. It hasn't really maintained, at least recently, that well. So we're looking to do complete upgrade underground, complete upgrade above ground. I would like to point out, I know there was an inspection report, and we noticed that they said that there was like an addition that was placed onto the building. Some of it didn't seem like they thought about the appropriate permits for the addition. excuse me, I spoke with the owner and prior people, and none of the operators there had made any of these additions, and I was searching through the records. And what's a little bit confusing, quite frankly, about this particular piece of property, it's in North Valley Street. Some people consider it North Valley Street, some consider it Elmont. So when I even looked at the town's records, some were under Elmont, some were under North Valley Street. I went to the county's records, and the county showed improvements to the main building in 1951, and also improvements to the Court addition in 1951. So all I can say is what we're going to do as part of the project is just kind of square away all the paperwork and see what the situation is. We're kind of, we're going to roll up our sleeves, do what has to be done, so that this way all that sort of stuff will be addressed. Other than that, we're looking to. I do have. We've been in communication with the neighbors. I've got about 80 some odd people in support of the application, and essentially the functioning of the site would essentially remain the same. Currently, we function with those three uses, with the sale of retail products and petroleum products. We operate 24 hours. We have limited hours with respect to the repairs at the site. And similarly, what we try to do is have our deliveries. We do have private sanitation, so we try to control and regulate our sanitation. I mean, while we're very close, while we're on a relatively busy roadway, and we're close to Southern State Parkway, we are mindful of the fact that there are a number of residences in the area, so we try to regulate things in such a manner so as to be as least disruptive as possible. So if there are any questions for either my engineer, the operator, or myself, or any interested observers, I'd be happy to respond to the same.
Cynthia, one question. Councilor, just with respect to the delivery of fuels, you're going to do it off peak hours. Would you agree to covenant not only off peak hours, but in a manner so that that's an inconvenience to the neighborhood?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
It's my only issue.
And I always feel free to give people my personal card with my cell phone on it, and if there's any issue, contact me.
Any other questions from other members of the board? Okay. Mr. O'Brien, if you would just stand aside, we'll have some, we have two residents who have indicated an interest in speaking. We'll start with Joan Priestley. Would you still like to speak, ma'am?
Yes.
You'd have to come to the microphone in front of you.
My name is Joan Prieston, and I reside at 849 North Corona Avenue. We received, the residents on our block received this letter about the rezoning of the convenience store, but they didn't offer any explanation. But now, after listening to those who have spoken, our questions have been answered. We were very concerned, truthfully, that they were going to enlarge the convenience store. And that was our main concern, because that would have had generated additional traffic on Corona Avenue. Corona Avenue is a shortcut going north and south, and the traffic on Corona Avenue is continuous. And that was our big concern, that if they enlarged the convenience store, it would generate additional traffic. But now, having heard the explanation, we're satisfied.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Maria Garofalo. Okay, not a problem then. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Okay, are there any other members of the public that would like to address the board on this application? There being none, Councilor, sum up?
And just to, we believe that the improvements are reasonable, necessary. We look at the board's favorable discretion. We think it's going to be an improvement. And just dovetailing on that, there's no expansion of the building itself, so the footprint of the building itself will remain identical, as well as the interior. There will be no change in square footage of the convenience store or any other operations. So everything is all self-contained, and there will be no change or expansion.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will accept the motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and reserve decision.
Councilman Ambrosino.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman. Councilman Boosby. Councilman Hughes. Councilman Santino.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kingsbury.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Council. Madam Clerk, on the decision calendar, please.
The decision calendar, we have application of TT of Freeport Inc. for special acceptance public garage to renovate premises for use of an auto sale facility with a public garage for automotive repairs in Garden City.
Okay, do I have a motion on the decision?
Second.
Councilman Ambrosino.
I'm accused on the matter.
Okay. Councilman Boosby. Boosby.
Yes.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman Santino.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kingsbury.
Thank you very much. And administrative calendar.
On the administrative calendar, I have items from 1 to 64. I also have a resolution